Yo, what is going on, guys? We just got our first look at the new upcoming Doom game, Doom the Dark Ages, and man, I just gotta say, they absolutely cooked by the look of things. If this game is as good as it looks in this kind of like gameplay showcase that they did, I think we're gonna have a good year. Us Doom fans are going to be eating. But I just wanted to get on here and kind of just give my thoughts about all of the gameplay and stuff with Doom the Dark Ages. But before we get into that, the game will be coming out on May 15th. So the game is not even that far away. I, of course, will be playing it. I don't know which platform I will be playing it on. Maybe it'll be PC, maybe PlayStation, maybe Xbox. Depends, really. I will say this, though. The game definitely looks more controller-friendly than Eternal was. I mean, that shit gave me tendonitis so many times. And the reason why I say this is because of the new difficulty feature. You can actually tune this game to be as easy or as hard as you'd like. You can change the game speed, all sorts of stuff like that. I'll show it on the screen right now. You can see here that you can not only change the difficulty, but all of these other settings to really give yourself the experience you want. And having things like this will definitely make the game a lot more replayable as well, so I think that is a really awesome feature to have. And it's not like a game like Dark Souls where the difficulty is an integral part of the game, so who really cares if someone wants to put it on half speed? I've seen some people say this is stupid or it would ruin the game or whatever, but I disagree because the original Doom literally had cheat codes you could use at the beginning of the game. You could do a bunch of cool combinations with this sort of thing. Make the enemies twice as aggressive, but also give yourself 50% more health. Make it so that parrying is the only real viable way to play the game, and make the parry window really good. You could do all sorts of fun things with this. But as for the core gameplay, they said this was going to be more of a slower pace style game. Well, they didn't outright say that, but they implied it, which I think is a nice change of pace from Eternal. I can't remember exactly how they described it, but they said something like Doom Eternal's like a fighter jet, whereas Doom the Dark Ages is like a tank, something along those lines. The game is meant to make you feel extremely powerful, which in all honesty I just think is fucking awesome. But one of the main things I noticed with the actual gameplay of Doom the Dark Ages is the fact that the shield kind of replaces the chainsaw in Eternal, if you get what I mean. For anybody that played through Doom Eternal, you know how important the chainsaw is, because without it you would not be able to get your ammo back, and obviously you'd have to wait for the chainsaw to recharge to use it, so it would force you to play with different weapons. That doesn't seem to be the case in Doom the Dark Ages. Doom the Dark Ages places a lot of emphasis on the shield saw, I think it's called. It's the chainsaw shield. You can throw it at an enemy and have it come back to you like a boomerang. You can obviously stun enemies, you can block projectiles, you can reflect projectiles, you can parry. There is a lot of importance put on the shield. I mean, let's be honest, dude, people are definitely gonna bitch about this. Another thing that I thought was really awesome with the game is the enemies. They showed off a bunch of really cool looking enemies. Obviously there's all the basic Doom demons which look more awesome than ever with the Dark Ages kind of style on them. They also have a bunch of new enemies like this one ghost enemy. Another thing I liked about the Doom the Dark Ages reveal trailer is the fact that there's a lot of emphasis put on melee combat. It is how you get your ammo back, and there are different types of melee weapons you can use. They all look extremely satisfying, and I'm glad there's a focus on melee combat because I always loved using the Crucible in Doom Eternal, but you don't get to use it very much. There's only 2 missions where you can regularly use it, and one of those missions is only at the end, the other being the Final Sin boss fight. So it's awesome to be able to use more melee combat in a Doom game. All of the levels that they showed off also look very different from one another. This will definitely help every level feel unique. This was a strong point of Doom Eternal as well, especially when you look at the Ancient Gods Part 1 and 2. You had missions like that, what is it called? The Oil Rig mission, UAC Atlanta, you had the Blood Swamps mission, that one with like all the purple magic and shit. But believe it or not, it gets even better. There are also sections of this game where you can fight in a giant mech. This mech has like machine gun cannons on it, you can melee in it. I can definitely tell they were going for a brutal, more slow-paced combat style that really makes you feel the power of the Doomslayer. There are also dragon sections of the game where you fly on this dragon, which is also really cool. Having 3 different gameplay styles, ground combat, dragon combat, and mech combat, is going to make the game feel very fresh every single time you switch between combat styles, and it will help fight the feeling of repetition as you play through the campaign. Hopefully there's actually a sizable amount of time in each mode. It would be cool if you could get 1 or 2 whole missions as the mech or dragon, but we'll have to wait and see. But luckily, even if the game is like 90% ground combat, the ground combat looks absolutely amazing. The guns themselves, they literally said, are the most powerful they've ever been. This is definitely going to be the best power fantasy style Doom game. Another thing I like about the combat is that strafing is now going to be a good option again because of all the projectiles. So it's going to make it feel like OG Doom a lot, you know how you had to dodge the fireballs all the time? So those are my thoughts on Doom the Dark Ages gameplay. I genuinely have nothing but positive feelings towards it. We also have the recommended specs available to take a look at right now so you'll know if your PC can run the game or not. For a minimum to run the game at 1080p 60, low settings, you will need Windows 10 or 11, an AMD Zen 2 or Intel 10th generation, 3.2 GHz with 8 cores, /16 threads or better, like the i7-10700K or AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. As for the GPU, you need something with ray tracing capabilities, which I'm not a fan of that trend. This is the second game I've seen this on, Indiana Jones being the first. I don't really like the forced ray tracing stuff, considering I turn it off on every single game I can, but anything better than a 2060 Super will do just fine. The AMD equivalent is an RX 660. So you don't need a powerhouse to play this game, but I don't think it'll run on Steam Deck unfortunately, which unfortunately is a shame because I do like to play 2016 and Eternal on my ROG Ally and Steam Deck sometimes. As for the recommended specs, it recommends an AMD Zen 3 or Intel 12th Gen, 3.2 GHz with 8 cores, 16 threads or better. So like the i7-12700 or better, or the Ryzen 7 5700X or better. It recommends 32 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of space on your SSD, which I think is a mistake considering Steam says 100. If you want to play on Ultra, it's the same CPU as the recommended, with an RTX 4080 or better or an RX 7900 XT or better for the GPU, with all the other specs for Ultra settings being the same as the recommended. I don't really have anything all that negative to say. Like, usually I criticize these games pretty heavily before they come out, but I didn't see anything that I thought was awful or concerning. I guess you could say the spec requirements are kinda high, especially considering the minimum specs for this game are higher than the recommended for Black Myth Wukong, a game with pretty rough performance. But besides that, there's really nothing I have to complain about, which isn't normal for me because I like to bitch a lot. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the new game coming up, Doom the Dark Ages. Leave yours down below. Will you be playing this? Will you not be playing it? Let me know. Alright, peace.